my story of my son's experience at the Milwaukee Children's Hospital, which was an amazing experience. Basically, you walk in and you're like, hey, these are all our symptoms. And they're like, no problem, out of towner. Let's take care of you. And they send me a text as soon as I sit down, and there's this giant tree in the middle that I didn't see. We get kids hospital, so I'm not looking around. And they're like, go stand by the tree. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, where's the tree? I'm like, oh, there's the tree. And there's this person standing there waiting for me to take me back to triage, to take me to our own room. I had just sat down. Like, we just sat down where all the plugs were to like plug and charge our phones. And I was like, this is an amazing place. So we go back. They ask us what happened. And I tell them, like, my son fell. He fell backward, like the opposite of a faceplant, like back. While we were trying to get one of those really cool wax molds at the zoo. The zoo was closing. We were almost out. Everything was good. He's been doing great in his like physical therapy that he's been in for 2 months because of his concussion that he already has. So this was pretty scary because now he might have another concussion on top of his concussion, which I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, what do we do? He's talking about the symptoms, and this nurse, he is amazing, and he's talking, like, he sees my kid is wearing like a Marvel shirt, and he starts talking comics, and just like the bedside manner is amazing there. And he talked about like really cool stuff about the artist, and like you need to look into Grundle and, you know, Mage and all these things. These are the words I remember. I don't know what he was talking about. And then he goes and he's like, we're gonna give you some anti-nausea medicine maybe, because my son's feeling nauseous and his pain had gone up from a regular 6, because he's been at a steady 6 for about 2 months now, or for at least a month. And his pain was like up at 8.5, 9, which was bad and scary. And so, sorry, I'm such a mom. That was pretty scary. Okay, so then we're there, and get together, girl. I think it's just hitting me up. So we're there, and they're talking, and this is the stupidest video ever, okay? I just want to talk about how great the hospital was and how great the care was. So we're there, and then another nurse comes in. We probably had a rotation of about 4 nurses because he left, the one cool guy left. But he made my son feel really comfortable, and they refused to give him any food because they're like, well, if we can't give him any food. I'm like, well, he hasn't eaten in like hours. Like, maybe he's hungry, and that's why he has a headache. Even though I know damn well it's because he fell. I gave him ibuprofen, which he had already had Tylenol. They're like, no, it's cool to mix. And I was like, what? I wasn't really sure about the insurance part because we're on Medicaid in Illinois, and we're like, how do you get that to work in a different state? So I gave the lady my stuff, and they just like registered us and did everything. They were like, yeah, it's fine, it totally works. I'm like, okay, I don't know what happened. So maybe after the second nurse, the doctor finally comes in and she evaluates him, and she asks us our history because he's just coming off of a concussion. Okay, so my son has got a concussion back in early April. It's been hell ever since. He did not heal immediately. It has been appointment after follow-up, after appointment, after therapy. So we've been doing this for like 2 months straight, where we're like every week is like 2, maybe 1 or 2 appointments. We finally have been like, it's getting better. So his pain is probably at a 6 most days, which is why it was kind of scary that he was at a 9. And now he's getting better. They gave us IV fluids, something called a migraine cocktail, which is supposed to like help with migraines, I guess. And then the next thing, which I didn't even know was a thing, is Benadryl. And they said that it would help with pain, like it's good for this thing, but it was gonna make him feel loopy. So I was like, okay. And then they gave him some kind of anti-nausea, which he didn't want to take, but I was like, kid, just take the meds, it's fine. So I consented to everything. He had no choice but to consent because we didn't have any other, you know, ways to treat this. And they were really trying to keep him away from getting a CT. During the time that he was being treated with all of these meds, they explained that he was gonna feel kind of loopy. And I was like, oh, he shouldn't feel like that as a kid. That should be an adult choice. And he did not like the way it felt. And I had to tell him, like, just lean into it. And he asked for a head massage, so I'd give him a head massage. And then he was like, he would like go to sleep and wake up, and he'd say like, I feel so agitated. And then I'd say, okay, like, what's that mean? Like, your body feels weird? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, ooh, I know what that is. Okay, let me help you. So I literally had to keep massaging him throughout the entire night that we were there, as we were waiting for his pain to go down. So eventually they just said his pain was still too high. They wanted to just make sure, and they really don't like doing it, but they did give him a CT. This fine. So the next day he woke up. We asked him what his pain was at, and he said a 2, which I was like, he hasn't been at a 2 at all since his entire first concussion, and then the second concussion. So I am convinced that there are really 2 different types of concussion. Like, they say that concussions are different for every time. I really do see the difference in, like, my one friend and her kid, like, immediately vomiting and getting a bump and, like, passing out, versus my son, who got hit and had 0 symptoms initially and has been through this long, drawn out, terrible thing. Because the second concussion he has, which he does have a double concussion, is, like, gone. We're watching him, we're monitoring him, and it's just amazing because it could have been awful. It could have been way worse. And then I had to drive home at 4 in the morning in Milwaukee, which isn't a bad drive. Anyway, the team at Children's in Milwaukee, it is just amazing. Their level of care, their instruction, how they treated my son, how they treated me, how they took care of us. Just top tier care, man. That's it.